Hello everyone, welcome to OpenLine on Tuesday night. I am Ben Hall. Very interesting show tonight. It was 1 month ago tonight that the Malaysian Airlines flight disappeared. So we wanted to talk about some of the legal things that may be going on, that families may be dealing with at this point. Get you up to date on the search, and also what's going on behind the scenes in some of the legal situations, and also review some of the fascinating legal decisions that have taken place as a result of some past airline disasters. And we are very happy to have with us aviation attorney Keith Williams. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
I looked back at some of the cases you've represented. Comair Flight 5191, which was out of Kentucky. One person survived. Everyone else on that plane died. I want to talk about that, which is just a remarkable case. But let's talk first about Malaysian Airlines 370. Right now, major search underway. They've been searching forever, for the last month, looking for the pings coming from these black boxes. As of today, the news is they thought they had it. Now they can't detect anything. What is your sense? How much longer do they have? How much longer will these boxes be emitting a ping?
It's my understanding that the search area was the size of Texas, and the ping narrowed it down to the size of Houston. I think those pingers are the boxes and the pingers in them are guaranteed 30 days, but they will go a little bit past that. I think they found it. I think we'll know something. We'll know the whole story, because that you have two of the boxes. One's a flight data recorder, which will record everything that happened in the whole flight. You'll have a cockpit voice recorder, a CVR, which will have the last 2 hours. So once they find those, I think a lot of questions will be answered.
And you feel like, do you have confidence that they will find it?
Yes, I do.
And what could possibly explain? You've represented all kinds of bizarre situations, all kinds of horrible tragedies. What could explain where that plane ended up?
Good lawyers don't jump to conclusions, but I don't see any way it wasn't intentional.
Right.
It's the trek they made. They stayed in Malaysian airspace. They avoided Thailand. They avoided forgot what the neighboring country there they avoided.
Right.
To really make a U-turn. So I don't know where they were heading. I don't know if it was the someone in the cockpit, if it was hijacked. So I don't think anyone knows at this point. But I think once the CVR and the flight data recorder is recovered, I think a lot of questions will be answered.
And this is a difficult thing to sort of get into, but behind the scenes, the families are devastated.
Correct.
The airline is obviously devastated. What is going on legally? What are families thinking about? What should they be thinking about? I mean, what's kind of going on? This has been a month, and this is unprecedented that they still haven't found the plane a month later. But we're a month out of a missing plane. What kind of things are going on legally?
Well, this is an international flight, so it's governed by the Montreal Convention, which Malaysia is a signatory on. And under that, each family will receive approximately $175,000. It's strict liability. So, and they're entitled to some other things, but I don't know if that's been paid. But they can file a lawsuit for an amount above that, and for Malaysian Air not to have to pay damages above that, they would have to prove that they didn't do anything negligent.
Okay. So automatically, I didn't know that. So automatically, there is a set amount that each family would receive for each victim. The estate, I guess, of each victim receives.
Yes.
And then, would Malaysia Airlines be contacting families and trying to settle with them at this, tragic, horrible moment? How soon does that kind of thing take place after a disaster?
I sure hope not. It happens. It does. I sure hope not. I hope lawyers aren't chasing these cases. I hope we get some answers before we move forward. I don't know the answer, but all I can say is I hope not.
And generally speaking, how does that work? And generally speaking, this case again is so unusual. Generally speaking, there's a crash, and we know where the airline went down, and we know for sure that there are fatalities.
Right.
In this case, it is different. But how soon after does the legal maneuvering begin?
Instantly. You can bet there's going to be several insurance companies involved. They've got lawyers, engineers, pilots. They're on top of it. The families, they don't have that benefit. So you can bet the insurance companies are there.
And the insurance companies for whom? For the airline?
Yes.
And are they trying, generally speaking, now let's take Malaysia off the table, generally speaking, are they trying to, because you mentioned this Montreal, that protocol where every family is going to get the $175,000. Is there something similar to that in a domestic situation?
No. In a domestic situation, well, that's an international treaty between, I think, 104 or 5 countries. Before that was Warsaw, which was, I think, in 1929. Montreal replaced it in 1999. But domestically, you have the Federal Aviation Act, and it has certain things, but there's legal maneuvering that goes on. The airline, if it's a domestic crash, the airlines wants the FAA Act to apply because it limits several things, and they will argue that it's preempted by federal law, where we that represent the passengers and their families, we don't mention the FAA Act. We strictly go with common law negligence.
And what is the FAA Act? If it were under the FAA Act, what would that mean for the families?
Fortunately, I've never had one that got stuck under that act, but it would limit. It's limits, yes. It limits where under state law you don't have, well, some states you don't have limits. Tennessee, we would have limits on damages.
We would have limits on damage. Yes. So then do you get into, if the flight originated in one and it was going to land in another, would you get into the jurisdiction, and that becomes important if one state has a limit and another doesn't? Yes,
very important. It's called forum shopping, and we lawyers are guilty of that. But we've taken an oath to represent our client zealously. And if it takes off in Nashville and lands in New York, and New York's a better venue, I think it's my job to make sure I get it to New York.
And you've represented some fascinating cases. I mentioned this Comair flight. There's also, you said there was one Nashville to New York just recently, where no one died, but passengers were really shaken up.
Right.
How big a field is this when you talk about aviation law? And how common are these kinds of suits, whether it's passengers that are just shaken up, and then of course on the far end, the deaths?
They're common. I mean, thank God, not as common as trucking accidents or auto accidents. And to fly is very safe. It's so. They're not, I wouldn't say they're common. They're common when a crash occurs, because normally a crash doesn't occur unless somebody did something wrong. It may be maintenance, it may be pilot error, it may be the air traffic controller, it could be anything. A lot of times it's a defective product. That's almost every case, aviation case, turns into a product's liability case.
Because the product is defective?
Yes.
Now, if it is a pilot error situation, how does that affect it?
Well, let's say Honeywell or Boeing, they're always going to point at the pilot. I've never seen one where they didn't. And then saying, well, he did something wrong. So it gets them pointing at each other. The pilot would be the airlines.
Right. So if the pilot messed up, then the airline is at fault.
Right.
If the product was faulty, then the manufacturer would be more at fault.
Exactly.
And so there's that back and forth.
Exactly.
And now, all right, we're going to take a break. Then we're going to come back. I want to talk about Comair Flight 5191. This was in 2006 in Kentucky.
Yeah.
49 people died. One person survived.
Yes.
This is an astounding story, and I want to kind of go behind the scenes from that. It's very interesting, some of the stuff that came out of that. So we'll take a break. If you want to call, there's the number 737 plus 737 7587. Take a break. Be back right after this.